Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Barnes. I'm a staff psychologist at the University of Notre Dame Counseling Center, where I've worked for the past 15 years. And this is The Myths of Happiness at Notre Dame. This video is an adaptation of one done by Dr. Russ Harris called Myths of Happiness, which is based on his book, The Happiness Trap. As Dr. Harris says, there are lots of myths about happiness that will make you miserable if you buy into them. Myth number one. The normal and natural state for Notre Dame students is happy, confident, and having it all together. Notre Dame students have been conditioned to show the best sides of themselves, what they're good at, what they've achieved, and all the things that you would put on a college essay to be able to get into a highly competitive university like Notre Dame. And so when you come to Notre Dame, this is what you see, people seeming to be happy, confident, and having it all together. And so anytime you're not feeling this way, you can easily mistakenly assume that you're somehow different and that there's something wrong with you, which of course only makes you feel worse and alone in your pain. Human beings have a natural tendency to compare ourselves to one another. And when it appears that others have things that we don't have, we tend to feel inadequate, envious, and dissatisfied with what we do have. Advertisers know how to exploit this to get us to buy products by pairing their products with superficial and unrealistic images of success, wealth, beauty, and happiness. And to make this even worse, along comes social media, where we compare our real, imperfect lives to others' carefully crafted social media profiles, which show a very skewed picture of what their lives are actually like. The fancy spring break vacations, their perfect romantic relationships, the parties that you weren't invited to. Of course, they tend not to post about their struggles, their mistakes, and disappointments.
It's no coincidence that college mental health has taken a nosedive since the advent of social media.
Myth number two, happiness means feeling good or content. Well, if this is your definition of happiness, then there is no such thing as lasting happiness. Think of the happiest day of your life. How long did the pleasant feelings last before there was some kind of disappointment or irritation, or those feelings just faded? The reality is that the natural state for all human beings is an ever changing flow of emotions. Emotions are like the weather. It's not always a warm, sunny day. Sometimes it's cold and rainy. Sometimes there are hurricanes and tornadoes. And here in South Bend, during the winter, there's this permacloud that we all have to deal with. Life is full of ups and downs, uncertainties, successes and failures, joys and pains, pressures, mistakes and rejections. And naturally, painful feelings flow from these experiences, including anxiety, loneliness, sadness, frustration, and so on. Naturally, you're going to feel anxious with a big test or interview or presentation coming up, or sad when you get your heart broken or someone dies, and overwhelmed when you have lots to do with limited time to do it all. In fact, for human beings, feeling happy and satisfied, while it's something we naturally seek, it doesn't last, because feeling this way is not really to our evolutionary advantage. What is to our advantage is constantly thinking about what is wrong, what could go wrong, what I need to do to keep up or to compete with other groups for limited resources. As Dr. Harris says, a better definition of happiness is living a rich, full, and meaningful life in which we feel the full range of emotions, not just the positive ones, and we make plenty of room for the painful ones. Like the books we read and the movies we watch, it has all sorts of feelings, ups, downs, uncertainties, and suspense. However, if you buy into the myth that you should be feeling happy most of the time, well, when painful feelings inevitably show up, you're going to tend to have additional and unnecessary feelings about those painful feelings. So, for example, if you feel anxiety, which is normal and everyone experiences, you might then start to feel anxious about feeling anxious. Then you might start feeling sad and frustrated about feeling anxious, Like, why is this happening to me? And then you might start to feel guilty about feeling sad and frustrated about feeling anxious, Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way when I'm so fortunate to be here at Notre Dame when there are starving kids all over the world or people going to Boston College. And so, rather than just feeling anxious, you add all sorts of unnecessary suffering by judging and resisting your feelings rather than accepting them. And this is very counterintuitive, but more and more psychological research is demonstrating a paradox that accepting our painful feelings with self-compassion is associated with much better mental health outcomes, whereas the opposite is true for not accepting them. This doesn't mean that we necessarily like or want those feelings, but we don't have to struggle with them. Myth number three, your self-worth is determined by you being special or above average. You were admitted to Notre Dame because you had excellent grades, test scores, or some other qualities. You might have come to define yourself by your accomplishments. So if someone were to ask you who you are, you might say, well, I'm good at school, I'm smart, I'm a good swimmer, I'm a leader, etc. But now that you're here at Notre Dame and around others who have also achieved highly, all of a sudden you might be having an identity crisis if you're no longer the smartest person in the group or having the best grades or the best swimmer. So who are you now? If your self worth is based upon being special or above average, well, now you have a serious problem because it's mathematically impossible for all Notre Dame students to be special or above average at the same time. On any given metric, half of you will be below average and most of you will be average. And if it's the case that you have to be special or above average to have self worth, then it logically follows that most people are worthless. And that certainly doesn't sound right, does it? The problem is that many students continue to be a slave to this ideology and work themselves to death, sacrificing important things like sleep and balance in their lives for fear that they're going to fall behind their peers. It's as if one less GPA point or one less activity on your resume will make the difference between that dream job and a life of happiness versus a life of mediocrity and regret. As if anyone graduating in the bottom half of their class here at Notre Dame is a failure. How absurd is that? Of course, you can always do more, but at what cost? Sleep, your health, a social life, fun? Myth number 4, achievement will lead to happiness. Have you ever had the thought, I can't wait until blank because then I'll be happy or less stressed or whatever? That blank might be, can't wait till the semester is over, or can't wait till this project is finished, or get a job. Certainly, it's important to set goals, and indeed, it is true that we feel a sense of satisfaction, joy, or relief when we achieve the goal. However, these feelings are ultimately fleeting until we start looking toward the next goal, and then the next goal, and then the next goal, hoping that somehow we're going to reach a point in which we feel sustainably satisfied and happy. The problem here is that we're only focused on the future, and if we fail to live in the present moment, there's going to be so much that we miss out on. Further, if we don't achieve our goal, it can seem that we have nothing to show for our efforts. Another way to approach life is to appreciate all of your experience, including the good, the bad, and even the mundane. That is, the process of life, being mindful and fully present with our experience as it happens, what we are doing in the moment in service of the values that are important to us, like kindness, perseverance, learning, or creativity. And when our attention wanders, as it will, we simply, patiently, and repeatedly bring it back to the present moment again and again and again. And of course, nobody is 100% mindful, nor is this necessarily desirable. Our attention wanders all over the place in the future or the past or in whatever thoughts. However, we can always get better at being mindful, and all you have to do is practice. There are many resources available for you to practice, such as the Calm app, which is free for Notre Dame students. Myth number 5, vulnerability is weakness. Perhaps the most important predictor of well-being is having good, close relationships where you feel a sense of belonging and acceptance as you are, differences, imperfections, and all. In such relationships, you can let your guard down, benefit from the support of others, and you don't have to waste valuable time and energy putting forth a facade so you can fit in with the group. This is when you truly feel at home. Unfortunately, at a highly competitive place like Notre Dame, revealing those differences and imperfections can seem especially intimidating and risky when it appears that everyone else has it all together. Way too often, students tell me their problems, and when I ask them about whether they talked about those problems to friends or family, their reply too often is, oh no, I never talked to them about that. This means that we are failing to tap into the most underutilized resource on our campus, and that is each other. Unfortunately, the more we conceal our humanness, the more we perpetuate the myth that Notre Dame students are homogeneous and have it all together, and the harder it becomes to be more authentic. The reality is that many students, even those who appear connected, are starving for deeper, authentic connection. Many have this nagging question, would people still accept me if they really knew me? And the answer is, you don't really know unless you show yourself more fully. That is vulnerability in a nutshell. It's anything but weak. Rather, it means risking rejection and judgment to show yourself more fully for the sake of more authentic relationships. And finally, myth number 6, I shouldn't have to ask for help. Often students worry that others will see them as weak or a burden if they were to share their struggles or ask for help. The reality is that human beings are deeply social animals who were successful as a species in large part to our interdependence. There were no ruggedly individualistic cavemen or cavewomen who got to pass on their genes. They certainly couldn't compete with those who helped each other. Helping each other is way more efficient. Further, we feel closer to each other when we help each other out. We form powerful, trusting bonds through vulnerability and helping each other through adversity. And rather than feeling burdened, we tend to feel honored when someone turns to us for help. And helping usually doesn't mean solving the other person's problem, but rather just listening and caring can make a huge difference. Unfortunately, because Notre Dame students are so ridiculously busy trying to outpace each other, this leaves less time for those kinds of connections. This is a problem for us to all work on. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful and it gives you some things to think about.